When God is about to give you something big, one of the most unmistakable signs is a shift in your spirit. You begin to feel it deep within you, a stirring, an anticipation that you can't quite put into words. It's more than just hope, it's an inner knowing that something greater is coming your way, and the peace of simply waiting isn't enough anymore. You feel like you're on the verge of something extraordinary, and you begin to expect it even when the circumstances suggest otherwise. This sense of expectation is not something you can manufacture. It is a gift from God Himself. It doesn't arise from your own efforts or your own striving. Instead, it's a divine stirring, a moment when God touches your heart and awakens you to what He's about to do. It's a holy discontentment, a longing that grows in you as if your spirit senses that the moment of transformation is near. Think about the story of Hannah. For years she prayed for a child, and year after year her prayers seemed unanswered. Her heart was heavy, filled with sorrow and frustration. Yet one day, as she entered the temple to pray once more, something changed. Her heart was no longer simply burdened with grief, but filled with a deep sense of expectation. She prayed with fervor, and as she did, her spirit shifted from mere pleading to confident expectation. She had a sense that God was about to do something miraculous. In that moment, God responded to her prayer, and she conceived Samuel. This wasn't just a random moment of hope, it was a moment of divine expectation. Hannah recognized that God was ready to move, and her heart aligned with His will. That sense of expectancy brought her to a place of faith where she could believe even before she saw that God would answer her prayer. That's the power of this first sign. When God is about to do something big, He stirs our hearts and fills us with an expectancy that we cannot ignore. Expectancy is more than wishful thinking. It's a quiet yet confident assurance that the future is filled with God's promises. It's not based on what you can see with your physical eyes, but on the deep conviction that God has already ordained the good things to come. You may not know how or when, but you know with absolute certainty that God is preparing something big for you. For many of us, this moment of stirring can be a quiet whisper. It's not always a dramatic event, but a subtle shift. Perhaps you've been in a season of waiting, unsure if your prayers are being heard. Yet one day, you begin to feel something shift within you. It might start as a small thought, but it grows. This deep knowing that God is about to move in your life. Your hope is no longer distant, it's tangible. You feel as though you're standing on the edge of something, like a seed waiting to sprout. This is divine expectation at work, and it is a powerful sign that God is positioning you for something extraordinary. Take a moment to reflect on your own life. Has there ever been a time when you felt a stirring within you? Perhaps you're feeling it now. The question is, what do you do with that feeling? Expectancy requires action. It's not enough to simply feel hopeful. You must respond in faith. Hannah, after being stirred by the Holy Spirit, acted in faith. She made a vow to God that she would dedicate her child to His service. She didn't just wait idly by. She moved forward with her prayers and with a sense of purpose. When God is about to give you something big, your response to that stirring will determine how you experience the next season. Do you lean into that expectation and align your heart with God's will, or do you allow doubt and fear to snuff it out? Expectancy should fuel you, not paralyze you. It should inspire you to prepare for what's coming, to position yourself for what God has already set in motion. In times of expectancy, we often have to look beyond the physical realities of our circumstances. Just as the Israelites waited for the promised land, even when their immediate surroundings seemed barren, we too must wait with anticipation. God's promises are not always fulfilled on our timeline, but when the time comes, we will know. The shift in our hearts, that quiet knowing, will testify that God is doing something big in our lives. God uses this sense of expectancy not only to prepare us for what is coming, but to build our faith. Expectancy creates a framework for us to trust in God's timing and provision. It teaches us to wait with hope, not with resignation. You might not see the whole picture yet, but you sense that God is orchestrating something beyond your understanding. Look at the example of Abraham. God promised him a child in his old age, and for years there was no sign that the promise would be fulfilled. Yet, despite his circumstances, Abraham continued to believe. His faith wasn't based on the absence of evidence, but on the certainty of God's promise. God's promise became his anchor, and the sense of expectancy kept him going even when doubt tried to creep in. Brothers and sisters, when God is about to give you something big, he will first give you the gift of expectation. Don't dismiss that stirring in your spirit as mere wishful thinking. Embrace it. Nurture it. Let it fuel your prayers, your actions, and your faith. Because what God is preparing to do in your life will exceed what you can imagine. It begins with that deep inner knowing that God is moving and his promises are on the way. As you step forward in this expectancy, remember, God is never early and he is never late. His timing is perfect and he knows precisely when to move. Keep your eyes open and your heart expectant, for the big thing you've been waiting for is closer than you think. A feeling of restlessness in your spirit. When God is about to give you something big, you'll begin to feel a deep restlessness within your spirit. This restlessness is not the kind of discontentment that arises from dissatisfaction with your current situation. It's something entirely different. It's a holy stirring, an undeniable inner restlessness that rises up when your soul knows that the season you are in is about to change. You feel like you are on the edge of something significant, yet you can't quite grasp it yet. Have you ever experienced that feeling where you know something is coming, but you can't fully explain it to others? There's a pressure in your spirit, a deep yearning for something more, and every part of you feels unsettled. It's not fear, but anticipation. Not confusion, but clarity. This is the restlessness that signals God is about to move you into something bigger than what you've known before. In the Bible, we see this restlessness clearly in the life of the Israelites as they wandered in the desert. They were not content in their current place. The land of Egypt had been filled with hardships, and yet the wilderness was also filled with struggle. God had promised them a land flowing with milk and honey, but in the meantime, they had to wander. This period of wandering created a restlessness, a longing for more, and that longing stirred them to look forward, to press on, to believe that God had a better place for them. This restlessness is not something to be feared, nor is it a sign of something wrong. It's actually one of the most powerful signs that God is about to open a new chapter in your life. It's the divine discomfort that pushes you out of complacency and toward greater things. It compels you to move forward in faith, even when the next step is unclear. Think about the Apostle Paul, who was called by God to spread the gospel to the Gentiles. He could have stayed where he was comfortable, in the place of familiarity, but there was a deep restlessness that drove him to go into new places, to face opposition, to embrace uncertainty. His spirit was unsettled because he knew that God had more for him. Each journey Paul took was a step forward, moving from the restlessness of what was into the fullness of what was to come. Restlessness is the internal signal that something bigger is on the horizon. It's a sign that God is stretching you, preparing you, and encouraging you to leave behind the old patterns and step into something fresh. But it's easy to mistake this restlessness for a lack of peace or an indication that you're doing something wrong. However, God's restlessness isn't about making us miserable. It's about positioning us for what's next. Consider the story of a young woman named Sarah. For years, she worked in a job that didn't bring her joy, but she felt stuck, unsure of how to make a change. There was a nagging feeling deep inside her, a sense that her current path wasn't fulfilling her purpose. She prayed for guidance, but felt no peace. Then one day, something shifted. A deep restlessness surged within her, as if the world around her had become too small for the dreams she had in her heart. It was a discomfort she couldn't ignore, and though she didn't know exactly what the next step was, she felt called to move forward in faith. That restlessness led her to pursue a new career, one that aligned with her passions and purpose. And while the journey was challenging, it was exactly the breakthrough she needed. In moments of restlessness, It's important to understand that God's timing is deliberate. He allows us to feel unsettled when we've outgrown the current season and when He's ready to move us into a new one. God is a God of seasons, and each season is carefully designed to bring us closer to His ultimate plan for our lives. If you find yourself feeling restless, take a moment to reflect. Is this restlessness a sign that you are being called into something new? Is God stirring your heart to take a step in faith? This feeling of unrest might appear when you least expect it. You might have a deep longing for a new direction in your career, a shift in your relationships, or even a change in how you approach your own spiritual life. Whatever it may be, that restlessness isn't to be ignored. It's the Holy Spirit drawing you toward the next thing, pushing you out of your comfort zone, and reminding you that there's more in store. However, this restlessness doesn't mean you need to rush ahead recklessly. It's not about acting impulsively or making rash decisions. Instead, it's about listening closely to what God is saying during this period of transition. God doesn't rush His plans, and neither should you. Restlessness is not a license to act in impatience or hurry. It is a divine invitation to prepare your heart, to trust in God's timing, and to stay faithful in your waiting. It's also crucial to remember that restlessness often comes with growing pains. Just like a seed in the soil that pushes through the earth to grow, the discomfort you feel is often the pressure of growth. It's the stretching of your capacity to receive all that God has for you. You will be tested in these times, but know that it's all part of the process. The restlessness you're experiencing is not a punishment, but a powerful tool in God's hands, shaping you for what is to come. Sometimes in moments of restlessness, it's tempting to settle for what feels comfortable. The flesh desires stability and the known, but God is calling us to the unknown. When restlessness begins to stir, you are being invited to stretch your faith, to trust that God is leading you to a place you've never been before. It's a place of greater purpose, greater impact, and greater glory. Embrace the restlessness. Don't run from it. Let it move you forward, knowing that the very discomfort you feel is a sign that God is making room in your life for something extraordinary. The stirring within you is not just an unsettled feeling. It's a divine invitation to step into the fullness of God's promise for your life. God doesn't let us settle for anything less than what He has planned. And if you are feeling restless today, it is because He is about to do something big. Increase opposition. When God is about to give you something big, one of the most noticeable signs is the rise of opposition. It's as though the forces of darkness and the obstacles of life gather to try and stop you. But don't be fooled by these challenges. Opposition is often the precursor to God's great work in your life. It's not a sign that you're on the wrong path, but rather an indication that you are approaching the very breakthrough that God has promised you. Think of the story of Nehemiah, who was called by God to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. As soon as he began the work, opposition arose in the form of mockery, threats, and accusations. Sanballat and Tobiah, two leaders from surrounding nations, mocked the work and tried to intimidate the builders, saying, "What are these feeble Jews doing? Will they restore their wall? Will they offer sacrifices? Will they finish in a day?" Despite the relentless attacks, Nehemiah remained focused on God's calling. He understood that the opposition wasn't a sign to retreat. It was proof that they were on the right path. The bigger the blessing, the greater the resistance. When God is about to give you something big, opposition often rises to meet you at every turn. The enemy, knowing that a breakthrough is near, will stir up discouragement and doubt. It can come in many forms: people questioning your abilities, circumstances trying to hold you back, or even your own thoughts and fears telling you it's not worth the fight. But what you must realize is that this opposition is not meant to destroy you. It's meant to prepare you, refine you, and strengthen your resolve. If you look back at the journey of the Israelites, you'll see this same pattern. When God promised them the promised land, the path was not smooth. They faced giants, fortified cities, and overwhelming odds. But every time they encountered opposition, God showed His strength. The walls of Jericho fell not because of the strength of the Israelites, but because of their faith in God's power. The giants that they feared were defeated because they trusted in God's promise, not in their own ability to overcome. This increased opposition can be disheartening, but it's also an opportunity to demonstrate your faith in God. Opposition calls you to stand firm in the face of adversity. It pushes you to rely on God's strength rather than your own. It refines your character, teaching you perseverance and resilience. Remember, it is when you are closest to your breakthrough that the enemy will try hardest to distract you, discourage you, and derail your progress. The story of David and Goliath is another prime example. David, a young shepherd boy, was anointed to be the future king of Israel. But before he could claim that promise, he first had to face opposition. Goliath, a giant of a man, taunted the Israelites and mocked their God. The entire army was paralyzed by fear. But David's spirit burned with the knowledge that God had already equipped him for this moment. He didn't let the size of Goliath intimidate him. Instead, he stood firm, armed with nothing but a sling and a stone, declaring that the battle was the Lord's. This opposition that David faced didn't disqualify him, it qualified him. It proved that he was willing to trust God even when everything around him seemed impossible. It was in the face of that giant that David's faith grew stronger and more resolute. And because of his faith, God gave him the victory. In our own lives, opposition can be a powerful tool in God's hands. It's easy to assume that when things get difficult, we're doing something wrong. But that's not always the case. Many times, opposition is the enemy's attempt to prevent you from stepping into the next level of your calling. It's a sign that you're on the verge of something big. If you've been facing opposition, whether in relationships, finances, or your own personal growth, take heart. It might just be that you are closer to your breakthrough than you realize. Consider a woman named Rachel, who for years had faced personal challenges and disappointment. She struggled in her marriage and in her career, and every time she tried to move forward, something seemed to hold her back. One day, she felt the stirring of God's promise deep within her heart. She knew God was calling her to step out in faith and begin a new chapter. But the opposition didn't stop. Family members doubted her ability to succeed. People criticized her for even considering such a bold move. But instead of backing down, Rachel chose to press forward. She reminded herself that the greater the opposition, the closer she was to seeing God's hand move powerfully in her life. That's the truth we must remember. Opposition is often an indicator that we are right where God wants us to be. It may seem discouraging in the moment, but in the long run, it becomes part of the testimony of God's faithfulness and victory. Your resistance will not be in vain. It will work for your good, strengthening you for what's to come. As you face opposition, remember to keep your focus on God and His promises. Don't let fear or doubt deter you from what He has called you to do. Recognize that the struggles you face now are simply the growing pains before the big breakthrough. With each challenge you overcome, you grow closer to the fulfillment of God's promises. So when you face opposition, take it as a sign that God is about to give you something big, something that will change everything for His glory. Stand firm, keep your faith strong, and trust that victory is coming. When God is about to give you something big, you will experience a newfound clarity in your purpose. This clarity doesn't come from intellectual understanding, nor does it arrive all at once. It's a deep, unshakable knowing that becomes clear in your spirit, a sense that your life is aligned with a greater purpose, a higher calling. It's a realization that the path ahead is no longer vague, but illuminated, as if God is revealing the next steps with precision and confidence. Before God reveals His grand plan for us, there often exists a period of uncertainty. We may feel lost, directionless, or unsure of where to go. But when a breakthrough is on the horizon, God begins to stir our hearts with greater vision. It's like the fog lifting after a long storm, and we begin to see clearly the path He's been preparing for us all along. This clarity doesn't just relate to our immediate goals or tasks. It's a deep understanding of our ultimate purpose in life. It's knowing that God has been preparing us for something far greater than we ever anticipated. Consider the story of Moses. He was raised in the palace of Pharaoh, living a life of luxury, but he never fully understood his purpose. He fled Egypt after committing murder, uncertain of what God wanted him to do. For years he lived as a shepherd in the wilderness, tending to sheep. But it was in that very wilderness that God gave Moses clarity. When God appeared to him through the burning bush, he called Moses to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, a task Moses felt ill-prepared for. But God didn't just give Moses a task, he gave him clarity. A divine understanding that he had been chosen for this moment in time. That clarity gave Moses the strength to move forward in faith, even when his insecurities and doubts tried to hold him back. This newfound clarity that comes with God's plans doesn't necessarily mean that everything will be easy. In fact, it often comes with challenges and tests of faith. But that clarity serves as a beacon in the midst of the storm, guiding you to take steps forward when you feel uncertain. Just like Moses, you may feel inadequate at first, questioning your abilities or wondering if you're truly the right person for the job. Yet, God's clarity isn't based on your strength. It's based on his power and his calling. God's clarity also brings with it a sense of peace that passes understanding. When we are aligned with his will, even in the face of uncertainty, we can rest in the knowledge that we are exactly where we need to be. The confusion that once clouded our decisions begins to dissipate. We are no longer second-guessing every move. We're moving forward with confidence, knowing that the steps we take are ordered by God. There's also something incredibly liberating about this clarity. It allows you to let go of the noise and distractions around you, knowing that your purpose is no longer dependent on the opinions or approval of others. Too often we become entangled in the expectations of people, the standards of the world, and the pressure to conform. But when God reveals his purpose to you, it cuts through all that clutter. You know that your life is no longer about pleasing others, but about fulfilling the mission God has entrusted to you. This clarity frees you from the chains of comparison, approval seeking, and self-doubt. Think of someone like Esther. She was a young woman who had no idea that she was being positioned to become queen, to ultimately save her people from destruction. But once God revealed her purpose, everything changed. Esther realized that her position was not just for her own benefit, but for the salvation of the Jewish people. When she understood her purpose, she stepped boldly into it, despite the risks and dangers that lay ahead. The clarity of her mission gave her the courage to act, and she trusted that God would give her the strength to fulfill his plan. God's clarity and purpose also empowers you to make decisions with confidence. When you know what God has called you to do, you no longer waste time on things that don't align with your purpose. Your priorities shift, and you begin to see opportunities and doors open that you never noticed before. This clarity often brings with it a sense of focus, a narrowing of your vision, so that you can see clearly what is in front of you and take steps toward it. It's like standing at the top of a mountain and seeing the road laid out ahead of you. The distractions, the worries, the what-ifs all fade into the background, and you're able to focus on the task God has set before you. This shift in purpose also allows you to grow in faith. As you gain clarity, you begin to trust that God is in control, even in the moments when things seem uncertain. Just like the disciples who followed Jesus, they didn't always understand where he was leading them, but they trusted his direction. God's clarity helps us take those steps of faith, knowing that he is guiding us each step of the way. When God is about to give you something big, he will first reveal your purpose with fresh clarity. This clarity is not just a fleeting feeling, it is a deep, unshakable understanding that leads you to take purposeful action. It strengthens your faith, fills you with peace, and empowers you to move forward with confidence. So, if you find yourself in a season of waiting or confusion, don't despair. Trust that God is preparing you for what's next, and that clarity will come in due time. He is not only guiding you, He is equipping you for the great work ahead. A desire for a deeper relationship with God. When God is about to give you something big, one of the clearest signs is a sudden and deep desire for a more intimate relationship with Him. You begin to feel a stirring in your heart, a longing to know Him more, to draw closer to His presence. It's not that your relationship with God has been distant, but there's a shift that occurs. A desire for something deeper, something more genuine and unshakable. You begin to hunger for His word, thirst for His voice, and yearn to live in the fullness of His Spirit. This desire is not something that can be manufactured. It's a divine awakening. When God is preparing you for something big, He doesn't just want to give you blessings or achievements. He wants to deepen your relationship with Him. The closer you draw to God, the clearer your purpose becomes, and the more aligned your heart becomes with His will. This intimacy strengthens your faith, fuels your confidence, and empowers you to step into the next phase of His plan for your life. As He prepares to release something great in your life, He first draws you closer to His heart. Think of the story of David. David was a shepherd boy. David was called by God to be king. But long before David became king, he had already developed a deep, personal relationship with God. He spent countless hours in the fields, playing his harp and singing praises to God. In the quiet of the fields, God was preparing David for a life of leadership. David's relationship with God wasn't built in the palace, nor was it shaped by the approval of others. It was formed in the solitude of his time with God. This intimacy became the foundation of his kingship. When David faced Goliath, he didn't rely on his own strength or abilities. He relied on his intimate knowledge of God's power and faithfulness. His closeness with God allowed him to see his challenges from a different perspective, through the lens of God's greatness. This longing for a deeper relationship with God is often a precursor to greater assignments. God knows that before He can entrust you with greater responsibilities or blessings, you must first cultivate a deeper trust in Him. Your faith must be grounded in His love and His character, not in your own abilities. As you seek a deeper relationship with God, you are aligning your heart with His, preparing to receive what He has for you. This longing may manifest in various ways. You may find yourself waking up early in the morning to pray, feeling compelled to spend time in worship, or sensing a deep desire to read and meditate on His Word. The things that once felt routine now feel like necessities for your soul. You might also find yourself becoming more sensitive to the leading of the Holy Spirit, as if you were more attuned to God's voice and guidance. This stirring in your heart is God drawing you closer to Him, preparing you for the next big thing He has in store for your life. In moments of quiet prayer, you may begin to hear God's whisper in a more profound way. You may feel His presence in your daily activities, and your conversations with others may carry more meaning. This isn't a fleeting desire, but a deep, spiritual hunger that only grows as you feed it. When God is about to bless you with something big, He often first brings you to a place of greater intimacy with Him, so that you can carry the weight of what He is about to give you. There are times when you may experience a thirst for God that goes beyond what you've known before. It's a craving for spiritual depth, for greater understanding, and for a closeness that surpasses anything you've experienced in the past. You may look at your life and realize that nothing else satisfies you the way God does. The things of this world that once seemed to matter so much now feel empty, and all you desire is to draw nearer to Him. This is God's invitation to deepen your relationship with Him in preparation for the greater things He is about to release into your life. This desire for closeness with God often intensifies during times of waiting, when you sense that God is about to do something significant in your life. You can't help but draw near to Him, seeking His guidance and wisdom. The waiting period is not just a time of anticipation, it is a time of refining and preparing your heart. God uses this time to teach you dependence on Him, to shape your desires, and to help you focus on His will above all else. It is during this season that you realize the value of knowing God intimately, because without Him, all the blessings He gives would be meaningless. The desire for a deeper relationship with God also teaches you to trust Him more fully. As you draw closer to Him, you begin to understand His heart, His ways, and His plans for your life. The more you know Him, the more you are able to trust that He is working all things for your good. This trust becomes your foundation as you move forward into the promises He has for you. You no longer rely on your own understanding, but you lean on His wisdom and direction. When God is preparing to give you something big, He desires for you to be rooted in His love and presence. He knows that only through intimacy with Him can you fully grasp the greatness of what He has in store. That's why, before the breakthrough, He stirs within you a deeper longing for Him. It's a call to intimacy, a drawing closer to the very heart of God. So if you find yourself yearning for a deeper connection with God, embrace it. It is a sign that something extraordinary is coming your way, and God is preparing your heart to receive it. When God is about to give you something big, He doesn't just prepare your circumstances, He prepares your heart. Through moments of restlessness, increased opposition, clarity and purpose, and a deeper longing for Him, God is aligning you with His will in ways that are not always visible at first, but that are deeply transformative. These signs are not obstacles, but invitations to trust, to grow, and to step boldly into the promises He has for you. As you navigate these signs, remember that they are markers on your journey, pointing towards something greater that God is about to release into your life. The opposition you face is only a testimony of the breakthrough that is near. The restlessness is not a sign of defeat, but of God's preparation for something bigger. And that growing desire for a deeper relationship with God is not just a fleeting feeling, it's a divine invitation to walk closer with Him, to understand His heart, and to be fully equipped for the work He has for you. So, if you are feeling unsettled, facing challenges, or yearning for more, know that God is at work in ways you cannot yet see. He is preparing you for a season of greatness. Trust in His timing, hold fast to His promises, and keep pressing forward. Your breakthrough is coming, and with it, the fullness of God's purpose for your life.